Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for fighting the traffic. You could have been anywhere else tonight, but you chose to be here, spending some time with us here at Atlanta History Center in collaboration with True Colors Theater Company, and we're just incredibly grateful. So welcome to Atlanta History Center. If this is your first time up to our campus, welcome. If you're a returning guest, welcome. This room might look a little bit different than you remember. We're so grateful to be showing off our newly renovated facilities here, and we're just so grateful. This is our second official Atlanta History Center event in this space since it's been renovated. So your chair might be, you might be inaugurating the chair you're sitting in. So thanks for being here. Atlanta History Center, our mission is to connect people, history, and culture, and we always love when we're able to do that through partnerships with community organizations like True Colors Theater. So when Brandel called and asked if we would be willing to host a True Colors Theater Company community conversation, I was just ecstatic. I was so excited about the wonderful panel that they've put together tonight, and I know that all of you are going to have and enjoy a wonderful conversation this evening. You'll have some opportunities to ask your questions at the end of the program. So if you do think of anything throughout tonight's program, know that you will be able to do that. Also, know that we are streaming live tonight. So hello to everyone who is watching from home. We're so happy that you're able to join us through this new medium. It's a new thing for us here at Atlanta History Center. So we'll also have some questions coming in from the folks watching from home. So just really a unique experience that we're able to put together tonight. I just want to introduce a few things about the True Colors Theater community conversation, and I realize I also didn't tell you who I was. So my name is Claire Haley. I'm the Vice President of Public Relations and Programs here for Atlanta History Center. So again, we're just thrilled to be here tonight. So True Colors Theater's Community Conversation Series is sponsored by Brian Cave Leighton Paisner Law Firm. They've generously, I was told this is their second season that they're sponsoring of these conversations that are taking place throughout the city of Atlanta on lots of engaging topics. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by Adaye Moon. And Adaye, many of you might know if you're in the theater community, is an Atlanta-based playwright, director, and cultural worker. He is currently the Associate Artistic Director at Theatrical Outfit, but this is a mini homecoming here for him tonight because he was previously the Museum Theater Director here at Atlanta History Center. So we're just really excited to have him back on this stage tonight. Throughout the evening's conversation, we will also have some spoken word poetry and original poems performed for you this evening. And those will be by Atlanta's amazing mother-daughter spoken word artist duo, Alice Lovelace and Teresa Davis. So you all are in for a treat for sure. And before I turn things over to Adaye, we are going to kick it off with a spoken word performance by Mrs. Lovelace. But again, thank you for being here. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Lovelace.
Good evening. So, if anybody ever asks you where you're from, you just tell them you're from the beginning, aren't they? Remembering my birth. From my watery tomb along the shore of a lake, they dug up bones. The first bits were a part of a knee, then a foot, and next a heel, and as more bones emerged, they prayed they be female, for only a woman could connect us to our human race to stand, to give birth. After discovering the basin-shaped bones, they drank and celebrated all night while Elton John sang about Lucy in the sky with diamonds, and that is how I got my name, Lucy, they called me. But in Ethiopia, they held me Ninkanis, marvelous thing of wonder, out of Africa. Can't you see me? Been here all the time, out of Africa. Can't you see me? Been here all the time, out of Africa. Part 2. The fat face of the moon, swollen with sorrow, sends its regrets. Licking the surface of the river, she separates salt from sand, mist from fog, eat the tension in each, and I come, walking between the waves, balancing the genes of my atoms, resisting the moon's advances. I will you a tear. Surrender to the sacred sun, all else cunning night cannot hold me in the dark cradle of his journey. The fat face of the moon, pregnant with reason, laughs through a thicket of glaciers while this belly impersonates history. Oh, where are you, Lucy? Come, show yourself. Dance one last dance with me, Lucy, before the sun swallows you and I must flow with the mist. Add the residue of my tears, my tongue to this most ancient of waters. This river creeps between the barnacles of my smile. This river, excuse me, this fickle carcass, supple, constant, lugs history in the shifting tracks of her borders. Nomadic one, vanquish me in the hard perfection of your shadow. Mighty one, you flex, and the captured moon quakes. Great mother of us all, protect these bones. Testament to your grave arrangements. Tell me, where are you from? Take me to the waters. Where are you from? Take me to the water. Where are you from? Take me to the water to be baptized. Remembering my birth.
Hello, everybody out in the audience and people at home. My name is Adai Moon, and another round of applause for the great Alice Lovelace. I am honored to be moderating this conversation about teaching Black theater, and so I want to introduce some of the folks that I'm going to be in conversation with. I'm going to start to my right. Eric Little is a theater professor at Clark Atlanta University, actor, director, and writer. Aku Kadogo, chair of the theater and performance at Spelman College, director, choreographer, arts educator, and cultural preservationist. And to my left, Wesley Brown, professor emeritus at Rutgers University, also an author. Lydia Fort, director of the Playwriting Center at Theater Emory, and assistant professor at Emory University, and a director. And I'm Adai Moon, and we're going to get this party started, y'all. So I want to start off with this question because I think we're all theater artists, and I think all of us, or most of us, also identify as Black theater artists. So. And if you don't, that's fine too. No judgment. But what is Black theater for each of you? And how would you define it personally? And whoever wants to start.
Well, there's a story I heard that I guess many of you might know. James Albert Gronesaw was the first, I guess, enslaved African to publish a book, a narrative in 1770. And part of that narrative, he tells of being on the ship, and he was listening to the ship's captain reading a book, or looking at a book, which was reciting a prayer. And the Gronesaw was just fascinated by this, someone speaking to an object. And then he noticed that the ship's captain's lips were moving, but he wasn't speaking. And then when he left, Gronesaw found the book, brought it back, and started putting it to his ear to see if it would speak. And he was real disappointed that the book did not speak to him. And I think it was that point that he talked his words into his own book, and then he could listen to what the book said, could hear what he wrote by putting his ear to the book. And I guess I would say that that's Black theater. That Black theater is the repository that is spoken into by Black people, and then we then listen to the book, the theater, to see if what we hear is both familiar, challenging, provocative, forcing us to celebrate, to have jubilation, but also to provoke us into hearing and listening to things that we would prefer not to hear.
That's great. Who's next? Little.
Okay. I think one of the things that Mr. Brown said that sticks with me is the word celebration. But I think, one, I'm like you, Adaye. I consider myself a theater artist, but I also consider myself a Black theater artist. Like I'm like you. I'm proud to say that. And I think Black theater celebrates and examines the Black experience. And I think that covers a gamut of things, whether it's our joy, whether it's some pain. Look out, True Colors, joy, pain. There you go. But I think that's what it is about. You know, I love even that the season, you know, was called Joy and Pain because, and we've talked about this before, you know, and I, you know, said this, it's like, you know, we get so much trauma. And it's like, from the Black experience, there's more than trauma.
Yes.
There's a lot of Black joy. So to me, Black theater is celebrating all of it, you know, and examining it. Aku?
Yes, well, it is definitely, I mean, I immediately think of the blues.
Oh, yeah.
I think of the blues because the blues itself is celebratory. It's talking about, it's the pain, but it's also talking about how I'm going to get through this pain.
Yeah.
And I find the theater, listening to the book really resonated with me because I feel like we make it up. So we will make that book speak. And I think that, for me, is what Black theater is making that book speak, or making the sky speak, or making my heart speak. And that's been my experience of Black theater.
Lydia.
This is not my words. I'm stealing this from someone else. But I definitely ascribe to Du Bois saying it's by, for, and about, and near Black folks. And I also think that it is theater that is immersed, steeped in the Black aesthetic, and that includes jubilation, that includes uplift of community, that includes like all of these things, music and call and response, and it's all of those things that we think of in terms of the Black aesthetic, absolutely. And then, so this is the other part of this, is that I think that some folks have called it AfricanAmerican theater. And the difference between Black theater and AfricanAmerican theater, for those who subscribe to this belief, is that AfricanAmerican theater is for white audiences. And when I heard that, it was just like, absolutely. Because I can go to a play and feel like I'm not moved. I haven't been engaged in a way that speaks to me and works on me. But I can see how it's useful to other folks and how other folks might need it. But yeah, I go for the uplift mainly.
Yeah. I'm so glad you talked about the difference between the two. Because that's been a personal beef of mine for quite a while. There is a difference between African American theater and Black theater. And as it relates to Black theater, describe your your first encounter with Black theatrical practice, and how did that impact the work that you do, or continue to impact the work you do?
Well, probably I could best answer that question by sort of starting with a place that's not Black theater, but in the early 1960s, I went to see a play that was at the St. Mark's Theater on the Lower East Side called The Blacks by Jean Genet. And all of these Black actors put on white masks and projected sort of the sins of omission and commission of the white world to a white audience. And it was like a jolt to my nervous system. But what for me was even more compelling was that the actors in the Black, James Earl Jones, Cicely Tyson, Lou Gossett Jr., Barbara Ann Teer, these extraordinary performers who then subsequently moved into theaters like Negro Ensemble, the National Black Theater with Barbara Ann Teer, the New Lafayette Theater, the AfricanAmerican Theater, the Penumbra in St. Paul, Minnesota, Obasi in Chicago, the Spirit House in Newark. And so it seemed that the outrage of many of the Black actors performing that play, of course, that was probably more work that they had gotten in quite a while, all of them gathered together, seemed to be a provocation for the creation of these Black theaters that emanated from in New York and then spread from there. So I think that experience of watching this play, it wasn't so much the play, but the emergence of all of these Black theater professionals. And then I began to see them sort of in all these other different venues in these Black plays. I think that was my sort of inaugural experience in terms of finding my way to Black theater.
Oh man, that's a hell of an inaugural experience. Like for the Black theater nerds in the house, that production of the Blacks, of Genet's The Blacks at St. Mark's is legendary, and a lot of people feel that it really started the Black theater movement. That production in combination with Raisin and The Dutchman as well. But wow.
So I would just like to piggyback on that because my experience was I was in high school, and in fact I was in a performing arts program in Detroit. I went to Cass Tech, and but I wasn't in any productions until I joined a Black theater in Detroit, and that Black theater was Concept East Theater, which was founded by Woody King.
Too.
Yeah.
What about you, Lou?
How was it shaped? It's the same thing. I hear the word history, and I think about how it's something about connecting to Black theater and how we can learn our history through that, and how that is shaped not only how when I am directing or involved with some pieces that are historic, but also just help me learn about me. But I think one of the things I was just sitting up here thinking, I was like one of the most impactful moments when it comes to my theater journey is one, when I first learned about Emmett Till and just what I remember when I first learned, I sort of heard of it when I was a little boy, but I never really learned it till I got to somewhere in high school. And it got me. I could not believe this story about Emmett Till. Like, I was like, what? And a few years later, when I got to college, I created this monologue about it. And so for me, how it shaped, it was me being able to hear this history and then being able to create this piece about it and getting some sort of catharsis through that. That has just kind of shaped me, like as a person, but also as an artist, of how, history and how we learn about ourselves. Yeah, that's one of the significant things for me.
Mr. Brown.
I would say, well, two people, LeRoy Jones, who became Amiri Baraka, and Lorraine Hansberry. Baraka, my introduction to Baraka, he used to write these reviews for Downbeat magazine, and it was called Apple Cores. And he was brash, acerbic, very sharp elbows, and a very quick mouth. And I gravitated toward that since I aspired to that kind of persona, but I was not as successful as Baraka. But when I saw Dutchman, the language in that play, it stayed with me for all these years. And someone once said that when you write a play, dialogue in a play has to feel like an axe. And Baraka's plays, particularly in that first play that I saw of his, Dutchman, was cut like an axe. And for Lorraine Hansberry, she just got up inside of me in a way from, of course, Raising the Sun, The Sign in Sidney Brewstein's Window, which is really a play that has not received its due. And then the last play that was not completed, Les Blancs, in some ways was a response to Genet's The Blacks. And I think one of the things about Lorraine Hansberry, she could create a situation, a scene, and be brave enough to show you a person who you would not necessarily identify with, but who was able to convey wisdom to a character that you did identify with. And there's a scene at the end of Les Blancs where James Earl Jones, he's torn. He says, I don't know what I should do. And she says, you don't remember the math lessons I taught you. And he says, what's that? He said, a line continues on to infinity until it is bisected. And for her, she's telling him something that means that she's going to disappear because the world is going to be created is not going to include someone like her in the history, what she's brought from Europe. But she teaches him that. So this kind of complexity of character that she was very brave about. And so those two writers have really informed my sort of stumbling journey into trying to write for as long as I can remember, trying to write.
Yeah, a good friend of mine once said that for especially any black male of a certain age, I'll think about myself, it's almost, who wants to write, you almost always go through a Baraka phase. And I know for me, I was in high school, at my wonderful Lily White High School, looking for a scene to do for scene class, and I came across this play called The Toilet. And it was literally the first time I ever read a play where the characters sounded like me and my friends. And I didn't know you could do that in theater, where you could have, these characters who sound like people you know. So yeah, rest in peace, Baraka. So for, all of us teach students of all ethnicities and backgrounds. Why do you think it's important for non-black students to know about black theater?
Non-black students? Because it's a part of theater history, just like everything else. I think it is always interesting to me, like you said, because this whole thing, when we get to the whole, what are classics, what they consider classics. And, sometimes you look at some of those, and to me, I'm like, really? But you look at all, some of like, 20th, 30th, 40th, 50th, 60th, 70th, 80th, 90th, 100th, 200th, 300th, 400th, 500th, 600th, 700th, 800th, 900th, 1000th, you know, like you said, some NEC, because, you know, of course, everybody knows August Wilson, but beyond him, you go over to Joseph A. Walker, Charles Fuller, Ed Bullins, you go back to those people, and it's like, those are just as classic. But I think they need to know it because to me, it's one, it's history, but two, the same lessons that you get from an Arthur Miller play or a Tennessee Williams play, you can get the same things from Lorraine Hansberry and all those other people. It's those same nuggets that you get. It's the same, you know, you can get it, but the great thing is you're getting that Black culture or the Black experience through it. So for me, it's like, yeah, they need to learn about it. They should.
When I was teaching in Detroit, I had the other interesting piece is Detroit has the largest Arabic-speaking population in the United States. And one year I had a class, they weren't Arab, they were Pakistani. A third of my class was Pakistani because I had one Pakistani student the year before, and then the next year he said, and it was called Intro to Black Theater.
Oh, wow.
And it was, and this word history, you keep using the word history because you've got to align the history, what's going on at the time with the work. So you're teaching that. And I know those kids used to sit in the front of the class and raise their hand and they'd read the work. Or if they didn't read the work, they always read something. So when they came to class, they were ready to have the discussion. And we had riveting discussions about theater, about Detroit, about the state of the city, about racial relationships, about the N-word was always one of the most tense. It would come up. And another incident that happened in one of my classes, the white students decided to do a Black scene. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Well, it was interesting. And my Black students got angry at me for not being angry with the students for doing it. And I said, why can't they walk in our shoes? And why shouldn't they? And we're at play. But then that year, I got a standing ovation at the end of the, one by one, those kids just, because the discussion was riveting. And what is theater about? And history and race relations and Black theater and what it means to all of us.
Yeah.
Definitely. What about you, Mr. Brown? I know you were at Rutgers for a while.
Yeah, sometimes I feel too long. I taught, Black courses, Black literature courses, and Black drama. And there was a Black drama course that I taught, and it was a required course for all English majors. And there were white students who were out of sorts because the feeling, well, why do I have to take this course? It's not part of my major. I'm not really interested in this. And what began to happen as the semester progressed is that they began to see that these plays by Black writers had moved, for them, away from the periphery of what they thought Black life was about and became centered imperceptibly to them. And that was, I think, what I think should happen, where the sense of what Black theater is, Black experience. I remember something that Toni Morrison once said, that it is, Black people should be able, if we allow ourselves to, and if we take the fullness of what we have inherited into what we become, is that we should be able to go anywhere and be at home. And I think for those students, those white students, they in some respects found a home where they never expected to find one.
Interesting.
What about your experiences at Emory and other places?
I think there's so many reasons why it's important and useful for non-Black students to read and learn about Black theater. And I think the one thing that keeps popping into my head in this moment is white fragility. That there is just like this fear around how do I connect, and I don't want to be blamed, and we've all been down that road, right? So it is hard to get the students to a place where they can actually start to talk and not feel fear about being judged. But I feel like reading plays helps that. It helps give them a space to kind of practice, maybe, practice what it is to engage in Black life that isn't music, sports, or whatever else. And I also think, because if I can walk into a class, and not a Black theater class, walk into a class and teach and have a student say that, why are we reading all these plays about people of color? That's exactly why we're doing it.
Right.
Yes, you live in your life, and your life is completely surrounded by people who look just like you. But that is not the world. And I would hope that you would engage the world knowing that you're not just fighting for yourself. Unfortunately, that's what we teach, right? That it's dog eat dog, you gotta do it right. But we've lost that beautiful thing about how it is a we on this planet. And we have to restore the humanity that was taken from us as slaves, right? We have to restore and repair that. And the only way to do that is if you can see the humanity of someone, and that's what I think theater can allow, is to see the humanity of Black people, see the humanity of other people of color, see the humanity of people that we want to push to the side and not deal with. Because it makes us uncomfortable.
Great. Since we are being hosted by True Colors, Jamil Jude, it's really, this question is just, I think is really relevant and important. Why do you think Black theater institutions are important, or do you think they're important? Do you think they're still necessary in this day and age? And if so, what are ways that we can help, I guess, support and sustain those institutions?
Jamil knows that we've talked about this many years ago, but there was I think it's incredibly important. Still, to this day, I think we need to have Black theater institutions and theaters that serve other peoples who are not mainstream. And what we had been talking about was how there's a problem between the elders and the youth. That the youth wants to complain. Sorry. But they want to complain and need space to create. But if they don't connect to the elder, all of that is gone. It is just gone. And we've talked about how we're concerned, but I do worry that if anyone has reached the age of 35 or 40 and you've lost a parent and suddenly you're like, I need to connect to my family, and what does that mean after years of pushing it away? I fear that they will go through that and the elders won't be there. That suddenly they'll be like, oh, Black theater was important, and now I can't talk to Woody, I can't talk to Barbara Antier, I can't talk to these people who've passed. And so much gets lost when we don't know our own history and don't know how to connect, because then we don't know ourselves. So I can go on forever. But
That's so crucial. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with everything Lydia said, but I think it's quite simple. Why we still need Black theater companies is because we still have to tell Black stories. And let's be clear, they're not going to be always told in other places. I mean, we know that. It's quite, I mean, we went through this past year and a half, beyond being in this pandemic, we were in this racial pandemic and this, we thinking of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd and all of that. And then we've seen the We See You, White America, we had that issue. And then let me come straight to it. We had the big thing here in Atlanta with a big, racial thing within our community. for me, that alone is enough to say, yeah. We need it, because that community and we don't always get it everywhere else. The community, that energy and that need of what, like Lydia was talking about. So it's like, yeah, if you're not going to tell black story, or you get the one black story in some of these theaters a year, there you're one.
Around February.
Yeah, and that's it. But beyond that, it's like, nah, you got to have the institutions. Got to.
The young always think they're creating the wheel. Yeah. And when you just remind them, this was done in 1897, right. Or this was, you go back, or you say, yes, that's right, or you go back beyond that. And also because I just returned from Nigeria a week ago, and I taught in Korea for a little while. Mm. And the thing, in Korea, I had these really interesting conversations about the young and the elders not recognizing who the young are per se. But you have the culture is still always, there's somebody, in the school I taught at, we were in the modern school, but the traditional arts were next door to us. So it's there, it's prevalent. It's whether you get it or not. And I remember I took my students down to one of the palaces because I wanted them to, since I couldn't read the language, I always had to devise the work. So I took them to a palace, and my chairperson said to me, he said, nobody's doing that. That you're going to a place of history and saying, well, I want you to create from this space. But they have the pervasiveness of their culture with the modern stuff. So with us, when I'm bringing up our elders in our class, I was teaching Melvin Van Peebles just a few days prior to his dying. And I said, well, have you heard of him? Well, they hadn't. Even Amiri Baraka, when you bring him up, and we teach HBCUs, and yes, that sometimes is disturbing, but I never let it disturb me anymore, because that's our job, is to introduce and say why this is important, why you must connect, learn their stories. What is it about our music? How do we survive? What about the boats? What about us being cosmopolitan? What about the languages? What about? And make sure that we're connected, and that this wheel that you're inventing, it's got a story, a long, long, long story. Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Brown?
Well, I would agree that it's the importance of black theater. I would say that it should do at its best what the stylistics say: stop, look, listen to your heart, hear what it's saying.
Definitely. So there's going to be a mic coming around to folks in the audience if you have any questions for anybody on the panel. But I also have two questions from the folks watching in the stream. And the first question is, with theaters reopening since the racial reckoning of last year, are PWI theaters now doing better at contributing to and preserving black history, predominantly white institutions? Are they doing a better job?
Is that their job? I mean, it's just a question. I'm just saying.
And that's a great question.
Yeah. Is that their job? Or is it our job? Yeah. And is it up to us? I mean, when we talk about Woody King, who created an institution, I mean, what have we got to do to proliferate our own culture? What do we do? Why are we reliant on? I think I see the filmmakers coming up now that are they're going like, okay, well, we're not going to wait for Hollywood. Ava DuVernay is a really interesting example of, she said, okay, I'm going to kick this door down, my people coming with me through the door. So why do is that their job? It's for us to figure out how are we going to make it go on. I think we've got to put it on ourselves a bit.
I think that's a great question. Is it their job? Anybody?
I don't know. It's such an interesting because is both. I see both sides.
Yes, I do too.
Number one is because the question before it: do we still need black institutions? So yeah, it's like so. That's why we need it because then we will be less reliant on like, we're not hearing our stories or I'm not getting any gigs over there. So I think number one is like yes, we need to of course have black institutions, black theaters, but when we have these other institutions, is it their job? Like you said, it's one of those things where it's like, when it's all said and done, we can't make them change.
No, yeah.
But can we enforce upon like, okay, it's something that I said during a Racial Reckoning last year. And I said, okay, you know how the people say they love, or like, I said, like, we love Dr. King. Okay, I said, I'm gonna bring Dr. King into it. I said, remember when King said in one of his speeches, he said, be true to what you say on paper. My point is this, a lot of them project this, sometimes they can project this is our statement, this is our thing, this is our thing. I'm like, okay, if you're saying that, if you're saying this is what the community looks like, are you doing that? Is it really serving all of the community? And so for me, in some of it, I'm like, they don't have to, but is it their job? They say it is.
They say it is. I agree, yes.
So I'm like, you have to be true to what it says on paper. And I'm not just saying for black theater artists, for other artists as well, but I'm saying, becoming as a black theater artist, I'm like, are you? Now the question I said, are they doing better? I don't know. We don't. It's a hard question. I guess I would say, what we've seen is like you've seen some people making some efforts, and then you see some making efforts.
Right.
Or what it looks like efforts.
Right.
And I would say those that are making the real efforts were already making it.
Yes.
They were already on that road. 100%, 100%. And I think part of it too is, we see how this goes. There's a problem. Let's respond to the problem so that we can keep face, save face, whatever, right? But does it last? No. Because the bottom line about theater is right now our system, the way that it's driven, is, money.
That's right.
And so what we don't talk about is how the people who actually fund a theater company drive what is on stage.
Yeah.
Right? We actually don't talk about that very much.
That's a good point.
But boards drive.
That's a great point.
In their subtle way.
That's right.
Point.
I'm giving you my $5,000. I may not give you another. Because I don't like what you're doing. I knew a young man, very, very, very intense director, BIPOC artist, who felt like it would automatically change if once there's enough people of color taking positions of power at predominantly white institutions.
Bless him.
And I said, almost. Because if the people who are taking power still maintain and support the structure that is already in place, then no.
Right.
It has to be people who are willing to work to change the structure.
Right.
And that.
And changing the structure at predominantly white institutions
It's hard.
Is work. Because they were created to keep you out.
Yeah.
And it becomes especially complicated in a city like Atlanta, Georgia, which is 56% black. And the fact that, as we found out from the New York Times article a year ago, that reality is not being reflected on the city stages. So I think Atlanta is in an interesting position where some of those demands can be made in a really sort of logical way.
And then audience.
And then audience. How do you get those diverse audiences in those seats? And that's a really crucial question. I think a lot of it is about telling stories that relate to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And actually going to tell them that they are stories that relate to them, meaning marketing to them.
And making them feel welcome in your space.
There you go.
That's a lot of work, y'all. That ain't gonna happen in 1 year.
So that's the thing too. Is like, is it happening? It's like, that's gonna take a long.
That's years of work,
Yeah.
decades of work. Because it took decades to make the
Get it where it
inequity.
is. Yep.
Who are the playwrights and directors of today that are preserving our history? Are they accessible to those who want to connect with them? Oh, this is a question I wanted to ask anyway, so that's great. Thank you, person from out there in Stream World. Anybody? Who are the directors or writers that excite you, who are new and young?
I love Dominique Morrisseau. Marcus Garley is nice. Katori Hall. Terrell Abbott McCraney.
Yep.
Those are the ones to me today who are doing some really, really exciting work. I'm sure some others are missing, but those are some of my favorites.
I'm chasing a black British playwright at the moment she's now 23 years old, because this goes to the age thing we were talking about. I saw a play last year. It's a two-hander called 7 Methods of Killing Kylie Jenner. And she juxtaposes Kylie Jenner with Venus Hottentot. Oh, the mind, and she was 21 when it was produced at the Royal Court. So that's who I'm chasing at the moment. And she does it in Twitter speak and memes, and it's so, the script is out of this world. I taught it to my students, and they said, this woman speaks how we speak.
Oh, you got to send us a copy of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It is. It really is. For me, it was the generation thing of jumping, because I wanted to know about what is this generation doing, and then I got it, and I was like, I saw the play twice because I didn't understand it the first time, because they were going LOL, SMH, blah blah blah, this and that, and they're all. It was, my mouth was open and I was gobsmacked. Really, I was like, wow, I'm seeing something that I have to go back and interpret and speak to this generation. And I took my 16-year-old granddaughter, because I went, I'm going to take you because you're the closest one in age to this writer.
She helped you learn, understand?
Yeah, because she's, yes, but she rocked my world. Yeah. And also it opened up the diaspora to my students. We also, because we had to talk about that as well. Right. And we had to, look at Caribbean, Afro-Peans. We had to do a little bit of work there.
Black is global, y'all. Global, all over.
Oh, yes.
All over the place.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Yeah.
We're everywhere. Anybody you're digging right now, Mr. Brown?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm on hiatus from what's going on at the present. I mean, some of the things, people that you've mentioned, Eric. There was was it Jerome Harris? Playwright?
Jeremy.
Yeah.
There was a piece in, I guess, in the New York Times about 10 writers who received these prestigious grants in California, but there was not one woman among the recipients, and he decided he was going to take himself off the list so that black woman could be put on there. And I guess that is a question that still seems to stalk all of the arts, the presence and the necessity of having black women playwrights. It's historical, having come up during the black arts era, the male domination was stultifying. Sonia Sanchez was one of the few
That's right.
black women who was having plays, writing plays. So unfortunately, it seems that we are still trying to deal with the question of why is it that there is this effort to continue to have this male-dominated sphere within the arts. And it seems that when there's an advance or something changes, then it seems to sort of return to the previous place where there's no space, or there's this black women are conspicuous by their absence. So.
The gender divide is real. It's real. What about you, Lee?
I'm a fan of Alicia Harris. I've been a fan of hers for a very, very long time. And as a person and a human being as well.
Is that God Is?
Yeah, it's God Is. What to Send Up, two amazing plays.
Yeah, I worked on a play of hers called Riptide. That was that thing of like combining time periods. It was a house and the ghosts were still living in the house, and so the ancestors were present on stage with the living, and it was a flood. So I had a pretty remarkable time. And 2 scenes in a slave ship in the hold.
Wow.
It was just remarkable.
I'm loving Erica Dickerson Dispenza right now. She has a play called Colored Water. I think it's supposed to be at Victory Gardens in Chicago in the spring, but it's about the Flint crisis. And she writes these really sort of political plays, but she uses Zaki's choreographed poem style, which is amazing. And she's a beautiful writer. And also, I'm really loving James Imes, who's a graduate of Morehouse, spent some time in Atlanta. But his play, Kill Move Paradise, is like one of my favorite plays the last couple of years. And he has another play that just debuted this summer called Fat Ham. And it's like a queer telling of Hamlet taking place at a black barbecue.
Wow.
And it's absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
That sounds good.
And he's co-running a theater now.
Yeah, Wilma in D.C. No, Philly, yeah. Philly.
To barbecue or not to barbecue?
To barbecue or not to barbecue? That is the question.
Some ribs or a sausage. I'ma eat both.
So, any questions from the audience here? You can raise your hand. I think Claire's coming around with a mic.
Got one right there.
Hello.
Hey.
Y'all can hear me? Okay,
Yep.
I'm Megan. I don't mean to start a fire.
Oh, Megan, don't be starting stuff in here now. Come on now.
But since we're talking about black institutions versus, so how we expect PWIs to make space for us, how are black institutions making space for our brown sisters and brothers? Because for me, I taught in Chicago specifically, and that's my class makeup on the south side, west side, is black and brown students. And I have to make them both feel welcome. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So how are we making space for those, Afro Latinx, you know what I mean? Like when I think about black, I think about black across all the spectrums and not just American black. And so how are we making space for them? And like, should we make more? Like, that is my question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Megan. I think we should definitely make more. I think a lot of it is really about the work. There are a few Afro Latinx writers writing plays who are specifically talking about that experience. But I mean, the overlap between the cultures is just insane, and it's interesting that there's not more of a conversation happening between black and brown folks. It's really odd, actually. Anybody got feelings about that?
Yeah, always. I can't remember exactly. I used to teach at City College, and the population is diverse in the sense when we really talk about diversity, it is that there. And most of the students that I was teaching in this intro class were completely new to theater. Some had never been before. And I decided, for whatever reason, I was going to take them to see this play that was by a Filipino group. And so it was only half in English. And I remember sitting there, and I thought it was a great idea. But when I sat down in my seat, and I was like, oh, they're going to hate this? What was I thinking? But afterwards, they loved it. And they were all talking about how they saw their own families in it. And this was like for, a group of people who were like from Bangladesh or like, down the block. I mean, it was just amazing. And I think sometimes I forget and we forget how powerful theater can be in helping people connect.
But don't we forget what an extraordinary experiment America is.
Right.
And that my sister-in-law is Ethiopian. And so we go to Ethiopian New Year's every year. And I always wondered, where's that voice? I'm not going to see it in theater, but the theater is in that event.
Right.
So how are we dipping in and out of communities, or how are they coming in, or, are we open to who's around us? This place we live in, Atlanta, I mean, remember, Georgia is a repatriation for new Americans. There's people from all over the world in this state. Now, how do we bring that to the theater? Or how do we alert, or how do we make a theater that is open for that space? I mean, if we really go on that journey, even just we did a bilingual play at Spelman in Spanish, because it was a Dominican, a sister from the Dominican Republic. Yeah. And she said, I want to do this. And let's do this. We should be doing it. We should be doing it.
And I think, too, one of the places where that logical intersection can happen is with hip hop.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Because hip hop is Black and Latin.
Yeah. and so, global. It's because it's in Wolof, it's in this, it's in
all over the
Arabic,
place.
It's everywhere.
A challenge to the young theater artists out there: create some hip hop theater that can get all kinds of folks butts and seats.
That's a good point. Great question.
Thank you to this wonderful group of folks on stage with me. And we're about to let Sister Alice back out again. And I just wanted to end on the note that, definitely if you're a theater artist, learn everything you can about every culture, but always center your damn self in the process.
Grab my bag. Really good. Hello again. You're too tall, Teresa. So when you're a poet, a lot of the times when you do readings, people will say, do a poem that's about you. A poem that's like identifies you. Sometimes you don't get what you ask for, but this is what they get if they ask me. We birthed the babies. We birthed the men folk too. All the joy in life we bring to you. Wild woman, come follow. We birthed the men folk. We birthed the babies too. All the joy in life we bring to you. Wild woman, come follow. Wild woman, birthed from Nubia. Wild woman in your heart, you know we are the ones with that Nubian glow. We are the ones. Women of the night. A wild woman make you feel all right. Wild woman, come follow. Wild woman, rooted in the rock of reality. Wild woman anchors bounds of insanity. Wild woman anchors many a culture, making way, breaking way for the future. I am a wild woman, and people want to follow me. I am a wild woman, proud to be nappy and free. Proud to be nappy and free. Proud to be little old black me. We birthed the men folk. We birthed the babies too. All the joy in life we bring to you. Wild woman, come, follow. Good night.
Hey, well, good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Come on, y'all can do a little bit better than that. I know it's the end of the night, but good evening, everyone. How y'all doing? Yeah, my name is Jamil Jude. I have the best job in the American Theater is that I'm the artistic director here at True Colors Theater Company. On behalf of everybody on staff, I just want to say thank you to here, our in-person audience, and everybody at home. I don't know where the camera is. This is the moment where I'm looking at the camera. I'm trying to be smooth. There it is. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. I have a couple of things that I want to do. First, before I go too far, I would like to welcome Ms. Teresa Davis back on stage and ask Ms. Alice Lovelace to come back out so we can give them one more round of applause and thank them for the amazing poetry and oratorical skills. Come on and get this curtain call, this encore, and a nice little bow for us here. We appreciate it. Thank you all so very, very much. No, we really are so appreciative of you. Thank you all. You know, when we talk about preserving black theater, when we talk about the honesty, integrity of the Atlanta art scene, we couldn't do it without you all. So we're really, really appreciative of you all and giving us that. Yeah, yes. You know, also, I wouldn't be doing the right thing. You know, preserving our history, black theater history, black American history, is also acknowledging those that have walked on this land before. So I want to also make sure that we recognize that we are on the land of the Muskogee Creek here in what is now colonially known as Atlanta, Georgia. So I want to make sure that we do our part to acknowledge our those who are still walking the earth in their ancestors, right, and the indigenous people of this land. So definitely want to make sure that we shout that out here. Although our friends at the Atlanta History Center are welcome us into their space, we are guests on a land that belongs to other people. Speaking of the Atlanta History Center, big shout out. Thank you all for partnering with us, and especially you, Claire. Thank you for allowing us to be in this beautiful space. This is my first time in this theater space, so I'm really happy that you all thought enough about True Colors to partner with us that way. Y'all, this is the part where I go down a couple of things that I saw and I heard, and you get to hear from me a little bit. One thing that I found that was really amazing, we mentioned and we brought in the voice of Mr. Van Peebles, and it's on this day in 1971 that Ain't Supposed to Die of a Natural Death, like that had his Broadway debut today. So it's ironic the space today on the day that it hit the Great White Way back in 1971. Also, we are 2,401 months past from when the first black play happened here in America. 1821, the African Grove Theater, they put on a production of free blacks perform the theater. So we are talking about preserving black theater history. It's just ironic that we're bringing in those names and those voices into the space. So I'm really thankful for the ancestral legacy. You know, at True Colors, that's what we think we are doing, y'all. We think that we are preserving black storytelling. This is actually the kickoff to our Sankofa seasons. Over the next 3 years, True Colors is going to really understand and try to embody this idea of Sankofa with the fact that a journey forward begins with a glance back. Next year, 2022, 2023 is our 20th anniversary season. And as a way to prepare for it this year, season 19, we're calling our season Go Back and Get It, where we're focusing on narratives of the 20th century to see what they can teach us about this moment. So we're really thankful to all of our panelists today, whether it be Daye Moon, his excellent facilitation, Mr. Wesley Brown, Lydia Fort, Aku Kadogu, and Eric Little. Thank you all for reminding us of the importance of preserving our legacy, teaching it to the next generation, be they white, be they BIPOC, be they whomever. The importance of the American theater, the importance of black theater has to be preserved, and I'm really, really thankful that those panelists are doing it at their respective schools, and that you all think enough of True Colors that you allow us to continue to tell that story. If you care about the return to live theater like I know you do, I know it is fun to listen to a panel conversation, but you know what we really do well? We put on plays. That's what we do really, really well. And I want to invite all of you all to come back to the theater at the Southwest Arts Center, where our home in the Cascade Corridor, when we get back to the stage November 30th with our production of Marie and Rosetta, which is about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the godmother of rock and roll, where we're actually going to put her full humanity on stage. I hope that you all join us back there November 30th to December 30th when we're back. But I'm taking up way too much of your time already. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of all of the staff here, especially Brandel Jones. Want to give a big shout out to Brandel Jones, who is our connectivity director, who helped put this event together today. So thank you, Brandel. But thank you all very much for taking your time out. I hope to see you again November 30th for Marie and Rosetta. Thank you all to the virtual audience. Come on, come get your tickets. Come get vaccinated, show your negative test, and come back to the theater. Have a good night, everybody.